Rebecca Stern is a divorce and family mediator, a strategic divorce consultant, a special education parent advocate, a parenting coordinator, and the founder of Pearl Mediation. She works with both amicable and high conflict couples and is driven to change the divorce experience for families. Avoiding the expense, time, and drama associated with the traditional adversarial process of divorce, Rebecca helps clients build enduring agreements and move forward on solid ground, educated and empowered. Some people call her a professional problem solver, and today she's here to talk to us about the truth about divorce mediation. Rebecca, welcome.
Hi, Tracy. I'm so thrilled to be talking with you today.
I know we always have really good conversations, and you know so much about mediation, which everyone is hearing about. They hear that this might be an option for them to save time and money in their divorces, but I think they don't know enough about it. So tell us a little bit just about the concept of mediation for people who really aren't familiar with it.
Sure. For me, it's the perfect in between, meaning you're not doing it at the kitchen table without a divorce professional to guide you, give you information, let you know the things that should go in your agreement that maybe you're not thinking of. You're also not heading towards litigation and spending all that time and money and drama ramping things up. Instead, you're controlling your own outcome by having a dispute resolution neutral help guide you to an agreement. And that process can be, a collaborative one and can be done in so many different ways to fit your unique situation.
So there is a neutral person, the mediator, who's sort of in between you and your ex, helping hash out how things should be put into your divorce agreement, things like that. What do you do about parenting and time sharing and all those kinds of issues? Does that mediator advise either of you?
So we're there to help you navigate towards an agreement yourselves. They're your decisions, you're controlling your outcome, but a mediator can help you know what should go in your agreement. We go through kind of our checklist of all the things that would be important to put in to make sure it's a lasting agreement and that it's done equitably. And we can also, in your unique situation, once we learn a bit about you, think of all kinds of creative solutions for the things you bring up that are the trouble spots between you, and make sure to flush out something that's a really great roadmap for your next chapter.
As a mediator, if there was an issue where, let's say, mom said, I want this to go in the agreement this way, this is what I want to have happen with the money. And husband says, okay, yes, let's do that. And you as the mediator think, gosh, this seems like something that's really unfair to husband. Would you bring that up, or is that for them to kind of figure out if something is fair or unfair for them?
Great question. So we can give you some guardrails to help you come to something that's really going to make sense by letting you know, okay, if you were to wind up in court, here's the range of possibilities of things that would likely happen. We can tell you, if there are rules in play that you have to abide by, what those are. If there are common ways that things are often done and with good reason, let you know what that is. And then meet with you, whether it's together or individually in private caucus, which we tend to do from time to time. Like, I want to know what's keeping you up at night. If I know what's really concerning you, what your priorities are, what your fears are, in all likelihood, those are not exactly the same things that are concerning your soon to be ex. And that can help us come to something that really does give us an equitable resolution and that you can both be comfortable with moving forward. I don't think if there is a power imbalance of some kind between the parties, like let's say, for example, one spouse has a tremendous amount of financial knowledge and the other spouse has never taken care of the bills and is maybe feeling a little intimidated by that conversation. My job is to be a neutral, but I define that as giving us a level playing field to start with. So if there's that power imbalance, we're going to educate the less educated person. We're going to make sure that they have their arms around what they're talking about, what all that information is, how everything is being valued before we even have that negotiation happen between the parties, so that we're not coming up with something that's one-sided. being a neutral to me means starting on level ground, because if one person has much more knowledge or level of comfort than the other, you are probably going to come out with an agreement that's not equitable. And in all likelihood, that's not going to mean a positive result for the whole family at large down the road.
So if I'm involved in a divorce and I feel that I need some advice, like, is this a good deal for me? Should I really agree to this? Would that be a time when maybe I might want to retain an attorney to give me advice? And can I still do that within the context of mediation?
Absolutely. I always tell all of my clients that I want them to retain review attorneys. And I explain what a review attorney is. It's not some shark who is going to get in the way of settlement. It's somebody who is settlement minded, who understands the advantages of getting this done, and that there is sometimes a price to pay that's valuable in coming to an agreement and getting it done, as opposed to arguing for years and throwing money at it. So, your review attorney is going to be somebody who can advocate for you, answer your specific legal questions in your jurisdiction, who's going to review any agreements that you come to in mediation so that you feel protected. At the same time, we can let them come into mediation, they can be in the background, whatever it is that's going to make you comfortable. But I want my clients to be well informed in every possible way, because you can only make good decisions if they're based on thoughtful information and you've had all of your questions answered. So, yes, I still want people to get attorneys. We just want it to be a team of people that are working collaboratively to get you the best outcome.
And you and I are on the same page. I really believe that you can't make a good decision in your divorce unless you have all of the necessary information. All right, I want to get into
Definitely.
some of the nitty gritty about mediation because people are wondering, is this right for me or not? Can you mediate a high conflict divorce? Like if I'm divorcing a narcissist, can it be done in mediation?
Great question. Get asked this all the time. And some people say no. I say it depends. It depends what we're dealing with. But I definitely mediate with high conflict couples, with covert, over narcissists all the time. It just depends upon the situation and it depends upon the fit of the mediator. So, for example, let's say someone comes to me and they say, my ex is a complete narcissist. I don't think we're going to get anywhere. Do you think that we can mediate this? I want a little more information. I want to get to know the parties, get to know what's going on, because you absolutely can negotiate with a narcissist if you have the experience and the tools to deal with a high conflict situation and someone who may be a more difficult personality. And everybody thinks their ex is a narcissist, right? So some people actually are, some people are just selfish or difficult. And whatever their personality, you want to know how to present things so that it can be productive. When you can't mediate is when somebody refuses to come to the table at all. If somebody is not willing to talk, not willing to make decisions, there's nothing you can do with that and you
Right.
can't mediate it. But so long as the person is willing to have a discussion, you can frame things in different ways. For example, if you think someone is a narcissist, well, maybe they kind of need to think something is their idea.
Right.
So maybe you present them with an issue. You say, okay, let's recognize this is a problem. I'm sure you see that. And I'm sure you don't want, to leave the other parent to your children destitute. What do you propose? And let them bring the ideas and the proposals and use that as your starting point for a discussion. Things like that. You just have to frame it differently for different personalities so that everybody feels heard and you can actually make some progress.
Great techniques. Now, do I have to be in the same room as my spouse in order to mediate? Because seeing him triggers me or really upsets me. I know if he sees me face to face, he's going to try to push my buttons. Like, I want to get this done without seeing him.
Sure. If people are really comfortable and have good communication going on, then of course we can mediate together in the same room or in the same Zoom room. But if it's a high conflict situation or anybody is feeling uncomfortable for any reason, we can go into private caucus either periodically or for very high conflict couples. I do the entire mediation by private caucus, where I'm acting as a go between, talking one on one with you, and then bringing proposals back and forth between the two parties and facilitating that discussion that way so that everybody feels comfortable. Because I never want anybody making decisions in a pressure cooker. You don't want to feel like I have to decide this second, or I have to decide this with him or her right there looking at me, giving me
Right.
that look. You want to be comfortable and at ease so that you're being thoughtful about it.
Or you don't maybe want your spouse to see you crying because this can be a very emotional time. So if you're in person, the way I've seen it work is there's usually one person in one conference room, the other person in another conference room, and the mediator runs back and forth between the rooms, right? Spend some time with each of
Yeah.
them, go to the other room, talk about an issue. If you're doing this virtually, it's kind of the same way, right?
Exactly. We can use Zoom rooms to have breakout rooms. We can schedule private sessions at different times. It's very easy to do it online as well.
So, does my mediator need to be in my state? Because I know that when I'm talking about the legal process, people are saying you need to talk to an attorney licensed in your state because there are different state laws.
No, they don't. And this is something that comes up a lot for me also because I don't just practice locally, I practice nationally across the country using virtual platforms. And all of the issues that we're talking about are fundamentally the same across states. And then there are certain things that may come up specific to your jurisdiction. And that's another reason why it's important to have a lawyer who's in your jurisdiction. And honestly, that would be true even if we were in the same state. I would want to make sure that the client had an attorney who literally knew the judge that you're going to be before with your case, because then they'll know how they like to receive things, how certain things should be titled and named. It just makes the process smoother in case anything very specific does come up. And I'm familiar enough with so many different states that I'll always tell you what questions you should be asking. So if I don't have the answer, I know where we can go get the answer together. But for the most part, the major issues that we're talking about that involve legal and physical custody, everything that has to do with child support with either equitable distribution or community property division, um, and alimony or spousal maintenance, those are going to be universal. So no, your mediator does not have to be in your state to be able to tackle those things with you.
If I'm looking for a mediator for my divorce, do you have some tips that you can provide me with how I can go about evaluating? Maybe I've got 2 or 3 different mediators that I'm looking at. How would I choose the best one for me?
Sure. I would definitely interview more than one mediator, just like you'd interview more than one attorney to get a feel for their philosophy, how they work, what their process is, and see if you feel like that is a good fit for you because everybody is a different flavor. So, me, for example, one thing that I do differently from some other mediators is I like to put things in small chunks of time. So, we'll mediate for an hour, maybe 2 hours. I will not do an all day session, which some mediators do, because I find that people become emotionally exhausted. And you're not going to be able to make a good decision with real confidence if you are completely tense emotionally after a couple of hours. You're going to wind up in that pressure cooker feeling. So I would rather have a session that's 2 hours and then meet again the following week than do it all at once. I tend to also be very collaborative. If there's another professional that can bring some wisdom to the table, like a certified divorce financial analyst or a CPA with divorce experience, mortgage lenders that specialize in divorce, we're going to bring them to the party. And we're not going to double up our efforts. If you have a tax question, you're going to get that answer from a tax expert so that you're getting the best possible information, things like that. In addition to asking about process, another good thing you could do is if there's one particular issue on your mind at the moment, put it in front of that mediator right at the outset during a consultation and say, hey, I know you don't have all the facts yet, but here's something that's been on my mind. How would you approach that? And you'll get a pretty clear idea of how they're going to tackle the issues that are most important to you. And that should be able to help you decide whether or not you're a good fit with this professional.
How would I tell my ex, I want to work with Rebecca? I've chosen a mediator that I think we should work with. And I think that people are a little leery about doing that because they might say, well, he thinks if I've chosen someone, then I've got some unfair advantage.
That's what people always think. So the way to get around that is to say, look, I've met with this professional. I think they might be a good fit. Maybe I could introduce you and you could have a one on one consultation as well, get to know them on your own and see what you think and make your own decision. I really think that's the best way. And very often that's what will happen. I'll meet with one of the parties and then I'll say, hey, do you think that your soon to be ex would be on board with my reaching out and inviting them for a similar one on one consultation? I'll reach out to them directly, maybe email them and invite them. And then when we talk on our own, we're having our own separate conversation and getting to know each other so they can really feel, this is or isn't a person for me.
Okay, we are wrapping up, but I want to have you run us through what we could expect from the mediation process. So I want to consider mediation. I'm going to meet with a couple of mediators. What would the process look like, kind of from beginning to end, of getting through mediation and finalizing my divorce?
Sure. It's different depending upon where you are in the process. Sometimes I'll come in and untangle something that's gotten a little messy already for one reason or another. But generally speaking, if I'm getting you right at the beginning of the process, our goal is going to be to come up with something that's called a memorandum of understanding, which is a document that encompasses all the agreements that you have come to with your soon to be ex and that are going to go into a marital settlement agreement. It will cover everything to do with the children first, and then it will talk about everything to do with the financial issues. And once we're all done with that, each attorney will review it. They'll turn it into a marital settlement agreement. They'll file it with the court. And if you haven't filed yet and you file with your agreement, it's beautiful because you'll go to court for maybe 10 minutes, be asked, have you done all your homework? Which at this point you have. Are you in your right mind? You agreed to this? You'll say yes. And you will almost immediately receive your order for divorce from the court. And that will be it. You'll only have to be in front of a judge that one time. The only reason things get sticky for people is that that's not the process. And along the way, they either haven't worked things out through mediation or whatever process, and they're going to the court without actually having an agreement in hand, and the court wants them to go back and do their homework. So ideally, we do all our homework together, we come to an agreement, and then you're just about done.
Okay, that's awesome. I have learned so much about mediation. I've been involved in divorce for a long time, but there was a lot we talked about today that was enlightening to me. So thank you so much for all that you shared. I know you have a free resource for our listeners called What Now? Your Essential Guide to Smart Divorce. And we'll link that in the show notes, but tell us a little bit about what that's about.
So, really, I just want to give people a guide as to what on earth you do first when you're entering this process. You know, this is the situation, you're feeling stressed, there's a lot of information out there. What are the most important first steps to take and things to know as you get started in the process? That's going to give you that starter roadmap.
I love free resources like this because I find them so helpful to people who are considering divorce or in the divorce process. Now, I know you mediate across the country, so tell us a little more about your mediation services and how people would get started with you if they wanted to look into it.
Sure, the best way to reach out to me is through my website. It's www.rebecca-stern.com. And on there, you can sign up for a free consultation with me, and we can talk through mediation as well as consulting services, parenting coordination. I also do special education parent advocacy, very often working with families who are divorcing, who have children with special education needs, creating parenting plans that work for them. So if any of those things are what you're struggling with, I'm happy to help.
Thanks again for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Tracy. Great to talk with you.